They did not kill him, and that was the most frightening part. In a world where kings ordered executions as easily as they signed letters, where men disappeared for far less than treason, where truth itself could be rewritten by power, death was simple, clean, final. But this man was denied even that, because death would have been mercy, and worse, it might have been revealing. Somewhere within the hidden fortresses of France, behind stone walls that devoured sound and memory alike, a man lived without a name, without a past, without a face. He was not imprisoned for what he had done. He was imprisoned for what he was, and whatever that was. It terrified those in power enough to erase him completely. The mask was not symbolic. It was real, forged from iron, heavy, cold, designed not for comfort, but for permanence. It sealed his identity away from the world, denying him even the smallest act of humanity. To be seen, no guard was allowed to look beneath it, no servant permitted to question it. Orders were absolute. If the mask was removed even by accident, the witness would be executed immediately, not punished, erased. Because whatever lay beneath that mask was not meant to survive outside of silence. The prisoner was moved often. Pingro, Exil, Sainte Marguerite, and finally, the Bastille. Each fortress more isolated than the last. Each transfer carefully controlled, overseen by one man. Benin d'Auvergne de Saint-Mars. Saint-Mars was not cruel. Nor was he compassionate. He was precise. A man shaped by obedience, built to carry secrets without letting them break him. And yet, this prisoner tested even him. The man behind the mask did not behave like a criminal. He did not beg for freedom. He did not rage against his captors. He did not collapse under the weight of years. He remained composed, measured, silent, as if prison had not taken something from him, but merely contained him. That was what unsettled Saint Mars the most, because broken men are predictable, but this man was not broken. One night, unable to ignore the growing pressure of curiosity, Saint Mars entered the chamber unannounced. The room was dim. A single candle burned low, its flame barely steady in the still air. The prisoner sat at a wooden table, his posture straight, his hands resting calmly before him. The iron mask reflected the light in dull, lifeless tones. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Saint Mars stepped forward. "You are treated well," he said. The prisoner did not move. Then, a voice. Yes, quiet, controlled, educated, not the voice of a laborer, not the voice of a soldier, a voice that belonged in halls of power. Saint Mars felt something shift inside him, a recognition, not of identity, but of status. This was not a man who had been raised in obscurity. This was a man who had once been seen, respected, perhaps even feared. And in that moment, the question changed. It was no longer, who is he? But, who had the power to erase a man like this and keep him alive? Versailles was not built to house truth. It was built to control it. Golden halls stretched endlessly, mirrors reflecting perfection from every angle, gardens arranged with unnatural precision. Nothing was left to chance. Nothing was allowed to appear imperfect. And at the center of it all stood Louis XIV, the Sun King, radiant, absolute, untouchable. He did not simply rule France. He was France, or at least that was the image. But power of that magnitude does not exist without fear, and fear does not exist without secrets. There were whispers, dangerous ones, the kind that did not travel far, because those who carried them often did not live long enough to repeat them. A story, barely spoken, that the king had not been born alone, that somewhere, hidden at the very beginning of his life, there had been another child, a twin. If such a truth existed, it would not merely threaten the king's authority, it would destroy it. Because divine right rests on certainty, on singularity, on the idea that one man is chosen above all others. But what if there had been two? Which one was chosen and which one was erased? The logic was brutal but simple. One child was raised in light, the other buried in shadow, locked away before memory could form, before identity could take shape, before the world could ever see him. But time has a way of revealing what is hidden. Even in silence, Sama had spent years observing the prisoner, and with each passing year, the illusion of ignorance became harder to maintain. The man's posture was not learned, it was instinct. The way he spoke, measured, precise, was not taught in prison. The way he remained calm, even after decades of isolation, was not normal. It was discipline, the kind of discipline that comes from a life of structure, of expectation, of importance. One evening, Sanmaz stood at the threshold of the prisoner's chamber longer than usual. Then he stepped inside. "You know why you are here," he said. Not a question, a statement. The prisoner turned his head slightly. A pause. Then, yes, no hesitation, no denial, only certainty. And in that single moment, Samars understood something that terrified him more than any rumor ever could. The prisoner did not wonder about his fate. He understood it, which meant it was true. Or at least, true enough. Somewhere beyond those prison walls, under gold ceilings and endless admiration, a king ruled with absolute authority. A king whose image defined an era. A king who could not afford even the possibility of another version of himself. And so, while Louis XIV stood in the light, his shadow remained buried in iron. Time is merciless, even to secrets. The prisoner aged slowly, as if even time itself hesitated to touch him. His movements became more deliberate, his silences longer, but his composure never broke. Years passed, decades even. Empires shifted. Wars came and went. Men who had once known fragments of the truth died one by one. And still, the prisoner lived. Until, finally, he was moved one last time. The Bastille, a prison not designed to hold men, but to erase them from history. Its walls did not simply contain bodies, they consumed identities. Saint-Mars followed him there, as he always had, loyal to the end, silent to the last. By now, the prisoner was no longer a mystery to him, but neither was he a man. He had become something else, a living secret, and secrets are not meant to last forever. In 1703, the prisoner died, quietly, without spectacle, without recognition, buried under a false name, as if even death was not allowed to reveal the truth. The mask, it is said, was removed only after his final breath, but by then, it no longer mattered. There were no witnesses who could speak, no records that could confirm, no truth that could survive, only silence. And yet, the story refused to die, because something about it does not fit. Why keep a man alive for decades if he meant nothing? Why hide his face if he was no one? Why enforce silence if there was nothing to fear? The answers have never been proven, only imagined. A twin, a noble, a man who knew too much, or perhaps the most dangerous possibility of all, a man who should have been king. Because in the end, power does not fear rebellion. It fears legitimacy. And if the man behind the Iron Mask had a rightful claim, then his existence alone was a threat greater than war. So they did not kill him. They did something far worse. They made sure he never existed.